Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
Hey, everybody, what's going on? This is your man, Big B, Brien Hanley, along with Tim Fitzgerald. Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders. Today, ladies and gentlemen, we are revealing – I guess we aren't revealing the conference schedules. I guess the Big 12 did that. But we are going to break that down with you. What the conference schedules for 2025 look like in college football. We'll go over who I think has the toughest schedule. Also, who I think a couple of teams have an easier schedule. So we'll break all of that down for you and more. But before we do, remember to like, follow, subscribe, get into the comments, and always hit the notification bell so you know exactly when Big 12 Insiders content is out. First things first, Fitz, what did you think of them doing this, the Big 12 doing this? I think this is a good thing for the Big 12, just another way to get some eyeballs on the conference.
Absolutely. I think it was great. I wish it had been live. I wish it had the feel of being live. And we know that. We do a lot of our shows recorded. The live ones just have more energy. They just do by nature because you're on. I mean, you get that adrenaline going. So I wish it had been live. And I wish the Big 12 knew how to do like a schedule bracket, or one of those. They sent out the ones with all the cells across that has every schedule lined up. The type is so small you can't possibly read it on your computer unless you zoom all the way in. But overall, I think it's a cool idea. What jumped out at me the most, Big B, it was on True TV too. It was on ESPNU, FS2, some streamers. But why was it on True TV if they don't have games coming this fall? I think so. They might have bought some of these games, and we're going to see a different TV partner for a few games, which might mean fewer ESPN Plus games because there was way too many last year.
Yeah. The fewer ESPN Plus games, the better. I mean, just having to go and do that, because how people consume football, Fits, and myself included, is like, okay, we go to our TV, and if you're streaming, you don't have cable, which I do, which a lot of people do. Now I have to get out of this, go into another one, and then go find the game. And if I want to go back and forth, it kind of eliminates a lot of people like myself have YouTube TV. Heck, I can watch 4 football games at once. You can't do that if the game is on ESPN Plus.
Nope.
So it eliminates that. I don't like that fact that we have so many games on there. So hopefully the Big 12 can kick that can down the road and get a new partner. I think it'd be great.
Here's a suggestion for a television maker. First of all, the whole streaming service thing where you got to switch between apps, if you can't solve that immediately, how about if a television offers you the ability to split your TV into 4s or 2s or whatever and run different apps in each of those windows so you can watch the games you want if they're playing across different streaming services?
Right. I feel like that might be coming, but then the streaming services will probably raise the prices so much. Then you'll be like, well, I don't want to do that. Yada, yada, yada.
We're all ending up on cable eventually. Yeah. It's a big circle. Let's get going.
So, well, let's get into this, man. As far as the schedules, and I'm just going to go down the list here, just from the top to the bottom, and we got them put in. Let's reveal some of these and tell you guys what we think. So first up, we got Arizona and Arizona State. Arizona needs a big bounce back year. Looking at their schedule, K-State game, I know that sticks out. That's a non-con game. You remember it was a non-conference game this past year because the game was scheduled beforehand, and they couldn't find other partners to play with at the last minute. So that's a non-conference game. And you look at their schedule. I mean, first of all, I'm not sure how good we think that Arizona is going to be, but they play some tough games. At Iowa State, at Arizona State, they play BYU, Colorado. Baylor's going to be really good. Pretty tough, Fitz.
Yeah. Looking at that road schedule, go to Iowa State, go to Houston, go to Colorado, Cincinnati, and Arizona State. That's got a little teeth in it, man. I mean, I think Houston's going to be better. I don't know about Cincinnati. Arizona State, great mystery there what they'll have, but I think they're extremely well coached. Colorado is always going to have talent. Iowa State is going to be well coached. Those are tough road games right there. That's a tough. If you're looking at that on your screen right now, that diagonal across the three different lines, Iowa State, Colorado, Arizona State. Wow.
Yeah, it's brutal.
That can add up, man. And by the way, I paired these by rivals or best pairing possible. So because I know with the rivalry, you want to see your schedule and the team you hate the most. So.
Correct. Makes a lot of sense. And the one thing that I will say, and I'll throw this out here before we move on, Big 12's got to lean into rivalry week.
Oh.
The rest of the country leans into we got to have. Now, I know this one is at the end of the season, but we got to have the other ones at the end of the season too. We can't be having these games like the Holy War we need to stop having that in October. It needs to be at the end of the season like everybody else is doing this stuff, Fitz. I don't know why the Big 12 doesn't lean into that more.
See, I'm different. I want the Big 12 to make a bigger deal out of rivalries, but I don't want a rivalry week, because in negotiations now for TV contracts, it's no longer really about markets. It's about just pure ratings, and rivals playing each other get better ratings. I mean, it's kind of counterintuitive. If KU and K-State are playing, that's two smaller markets playing, and yet they'll add up to more because people like to watch rivalries. Have a rivalry of the week. So you're playing 9 rivalries, 10 rivalries through the schedule as you move through it as best you can, because one of those rivalries might be a non-con game, say KU and Missouri. That might be a pretty interesting rivalry game to have as part of your rivalry of the week.
It could
try to boost one up every week.
I see that because, like the backyard brawl with West Virginia and Pitt would be a great example of that. So I mean, if they did that, fine. But if you're not going to lean into that approach, then lean into the other one. You got to do one or the other. So getting back to this, Arizona State, you look at their schedule, that Baylor, I mean, they go to Baylor, they go to Colorado, they go to Iowa State, they have Tech. I mean, it's not easy, man. It's not easy in the Big 12 in general, but I don't know that they did Arizona State any favors with this schedule.
I agree. And let's be honest here, folks. You could be a fan of, let's just pull a team out here, TCU. And we're going to look at this right now based on the knowledge we have left over from last year. Also based on what we saw last year, who knows?
Right.
I mean, maybe TCU will be a mid-level team in this conference. Maybe they'll be the best team in this conference, or, what we saw with Utah and Oklahoma State, maybe they'll be at the bottom. You just don't know in this conference. So this makes this exercise really hard. But I think anytime you got 5 at home, 4 on the road in this league, you're at a huge advantage, particularly for Arizona State. Getting your rival at home has to help. I think they've got a very manageable home schedule. They've just got some games on that road schedule that jump out at you. Again, back to my point, is Utah going to be what they were in 24, or the Utah we all know them to be? And that changes the context of that week 6 game, that 6th game on that schedule tremendously. But yeah, this is a more manageable schedule in my eyes than Arizona's.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's move on to the next one here. Baylor at TCU. Baylor, I mean, that game against Auburn early in the year, okay, but we're just concentrating on conference games. Arizona State is at home. Kansas State at home. They go to TCU. To me, this is very favorable, Fitz. I mean, even Utah, if you think Utah is going to bounce back, that game is at home. You got Oklahoma State, TCU, Cincinnati, and Arizona on the road. I mean, Baylor had it going at the end of the year. This looks like a very favorable schedule, Fitz.
Man, it's great for fans. It really is. You got 5 pretty cool home games there, and you can drive to Oklahoma State and TCU. And then if you're rabid enough, you can fly to Cincinnati and Arizona. Or I guess you could drive to Arizona. I wouldn't want to do it, but this is a fun schedule. I think Baylor's got a really fun schedule because it's broken up. I mean, they've got 5 at home, so they go home, away, and then they've got that extra away game in the middle at the schedule. But you're home a lot, and it's pretty cool. I like Baylor's schedule a lot. I think it's very manageable because of where you're playing the teams.
Yep. TCU schedule, on the other hand, look, I'm going to let the cat out of the bag. I think TCU's got the toughest conference schedule that there is.
That's part of why I didn't know what to do with them.
Yeah, I mean, Jiminy Christmas. They go to Arizona State. Then they play Colorado, okay, at home. Then you go to Kansas State. Then you play Baylor at home. Then you play West Virginia. You go to West Virginia like that's some easy thing to do. It's not. Then you play Iowa State at home. Then you go to BYU. I'm like, holy mackerel. Just brutal, brutal, brutal. I mean, I know you have some home games mixed in there. I get that. But the level of competition that TCU is going to have, if they can come through this thing unscathed, they'll be one of the best teams in the country, Fitz. Lord have mercy, this is tough.
Damn, Frogs, what'd you do to Brett Yormark? Wow. It's a 5 road game schedule. Arizona State, K-State, and BYU. You've got 3 of the teams that were towards the top most of the season. K-State faded late. I think they'll be pretty good, though. West Virginia and Houston, those road trips aren't easy either. West Virginia's tough at home. Houston's going to be good, going to be better. At least you get them late along with Cincinnati. If you're on your feet by week 11 of your schedule, you're in good shape. I believe that. You've got more manageable games, but what will be left of TCU at this point? If they're good enough to run through that schedule, they've earned it. They really have. This is daunting. And that North Carolina game, when I know we're talking about conferences, but that's a cool ass game. TCU apparently likes to kick off new coaches' regimes because they did it with Coach Prime too.
They did. Oh, by the way, they also get before Arizona State, they get the task of hosting a team that was in the college football playoff in SMU. Just brutal schedule for TCU. This
Evelyn
season.
Christian, I apologize for what happens to you on that second week of the season.
Yucky. BYU. You look at their schedule. Colorado on the road, Iowa State on the road, Tech on the road. The Holy War. They play Utah at home. Tough road games, Fitz. Tough road games. But BYU seems to be built for it, but challenging on the road this year.
It really is. And if you go back and look how these schedules split, the 5 and the 4, if you got 5 home games, you are an advantage. And I think we saw that last year too, with how the schedule played out. Going to Colorado, we don't know about Arizona. Iowa State's going to be good. Tech's going to be good. Yeah, this schedule has a little bite to it. West Virginia, Utah, UCF, TCU at home. That's an interesting grouping. Again, I just love the Holy War. I mean, they literally make everyone else look like friends. I mean, it's crazy. They really get after each other.
They do. Be interested to see that one again. Again, would love to see it at the end of the year, but it is what it is. Utah, look, Utah fans, I'm just going to wait. I know that they traditionally have a great program, not a good program, a great program, but I'm in wait and see mode.
Yeah.
Different conference, different results. The only thing that I can judge you by is what I saw, and it was not good last year. I believe that you can bounce back, but I'm going to wait and see. I'm looking at this schedule. Not easy. You do get some good home games, though. Tech, who's going to be good, that's at home. Arizona State at home. Colorado at home. Kansas State at home. But this schedule doesn't do you any favors either because, again, you got Tech, Arizona State, BYU, Colorado, Baylor, and Kansas State. That's not easy, Fitz. Not at all.
No. I look at that non-conference schedule, and I think they can get off to a good start. And that's going to be really important. And you move into that schedule. You got the 5 home games. Tech, Colorado, K-State, Arizona State. Oh my gosh. And then Cincinnati's in there too. It's tough. It is. Going to West Virginia isn't fun. Going to BYU, well, you know more about that than I do, Utah fans. And then go to Baylor and KU. This schedule seems you should be an advantage for having 5 home games, but they gave you a gauntlet of games to play at home. And sometimes that can put you at a disadvantage because then you've got games you could probably win on the road, but they're at home. And your toughest games can be at home. This is a tough schedule for Utah to prove itself after what happened in 24.
Correct. Yeah. And the only reason that I don't put them as one of the toughest schedules, or the toughest schedule, I should say, is because they get those teams at home. Had those games been on the road, and there's another team out there that do have these teams on the road, it would absolutely be up there for the toughest schedule as far as conference schedule in the Big 12 this year. Moving on, Colorado. You look at their schedule. I mean, look, they got the one early, but in between the non-con and the conference game. I don't know if I ever liked that, Fitz. I don't know that I like that. Get the non-con out of the way and then just concentrate on conference games. But they got that Houston game that's up there, and they travel to Houston. That sometimes can be tricky when you do that. So, but they play BYU at home. They got Iowa State at home, and they got Arizona State at home. So again, tough schedule, a lot of home games. They got K-State on the road, Utah on the road, but manageable. If you can win, if you can, hold home court, this is manageable for Colorado.
It is. The thing about this conference is two things. First of all, as we've mentioned, you don't know what you're really getting until you get it with these teams. But based on what happened in 24, you also know that if you got to play a 5-game road schedule in conference play, this is not a bad 5-game road schedule until you get to the last game of the season, and that'll be a war. But if you handpick to play Houston, TCU, Utah, and West Virginia on the road, those would be pretty good choices if you had to go somewhere in this conference. There's probably an easier path, but that's not a bad path. Colorado's got it set up. They really do. And even if you got fans that want to travel, you got a couple games you can get to on the road with Utah and K-State. That's a fun schedule. I'm intrigued by what Colorado will be without a certain group of players that were pretty good, including the guy who won the Heisman.
Yeah, I'm be interested to see Colorado because it seems that they may have it going, but we'll find out. We'll find out. Iowa State, you look at their schedule, not easy, Fitz. Not easy at all. Now, obviously, the first game is in Dublin, Ireland, against K-State. But then you dig into more of the conference schedule, I should say. BYU, that's at home. Arizona State at home. You go to Colorado, go to TCU. Not the most difficult schedule, but again, that 3-game stretch, Colorado, BYU, Arizona State, I think could define Iowa State's season.
Yeah, you're right. The advantage Iowa State has is they have a 5 road game season, but one of those road games moved to Dublin. So it's now a neutral site Farmageddon became Farmogeddon. And I think that really helps their schedule quite a bit. That means you're going to Oklahoma State, TCU, Colorado, and Cincinnati. Yeah, those are manageable games. And I'm not crazy about having to go to Colorado. I think that's going to be a fun game. That could be an exercise for a future show, is picking the game of the week throughout the season. But it's this is an interesting schedule for Iowa State. Keep an eye on the Cyclones. Matt Campbell's got it going. I think he's established the culture now. He's got his recruiting at the level he can succeed with. They're going to be a contender for a while, and that's good. It's an amazing fan base.
Yep, I agree. And the thing about it is how you know that it's on solid ground is that you heard his name kind of pop up for the Chicago Bears job, but you didn't hear his name pop up for any other college jobs, Fitz. No. That's the thing. Now they're to the point he's not leaving. He's got things established. There's no reason for his name to constantly popping up. Now, I don't know if he's got an agent or not. Maybe he does. And maybe he was pushing that narrative out there. But you didn't hear his name popping up for any college jobs anymore, which means he's going to be at Iowa State for a while, and I think that's a good thing.
Yep, I agree.
Houston. I suspect Houston may be they won a few games last year that nobody thought they would win, but me and you, we said it consistently that we thought that was going to happen. It did. I think they'll be even better. They got a transfer quarterback coming in. I think Houston they've got things going in the right direction. You take a look at the schedule. Technically, it's manageable if whatever manageable is. Again, they got that early game before all the non-conferences are done. They got that game with Colorado at home. I think that'll be a huge game for Houston.
I agree. This is an interesting schedule. I mean, it's a perfect checkerboard pattern on there. If your team was just home, Houston fans are going to be away, and then they'll be home, and then they'll be away. I like this schedule, and I like the scheduling of Oregon State to round out that non-conference schedule, because that gives you, a team that still fulfills the level of play that you're wanting in your schedule. They're still kind of classified as a power program, at least for now. But that Colorado game being week 3 for them, the third game of the season, there's your chance, man. There it is.
Right.
And you've got Tech, Arizona, West Virginia, and TCU coming in. Big B, that's particularly the back half of that is really manageable.
Mm-hmm.
If you're good, you're going to be good. And then you also go to Oklahoma State and UCF. We don't know what they're going to be. Baylor is a regional game. Arizona State, dude, I think this is a really intriguing schedule for Willie Fritz, and gives him an opportunity to build upon the success he found in year 1. Success we didn't see coming. It was, they got off to the pokey start, and then they got going a little bit. And we started to see some of those things that reflect Willie Fritz football. We're going to see it in season 2.
Yeah, we are. Absolutely. UCF, let's just call it what it is. They underachieved last year. Everybody knows that. Got a new coach. Because of that, you can say that Gus Malzahn resigned. I think he was pushed out. And I don't think there was a whole lot of tears from UCF fans behind any of that. You take a look at their schedule, troubling. That's the first thing that comes to mind when I look at their schedule. They go to Kansas State, to Baylor, to Tech, to BYU. Lord have mercy, Fitz. I mean, you talk about the toughest road games in the conference. I'm not sure there's 4 tougher games. I really am not sure, because all these places that they're going to, not that every place isn't crazy, but it's really tough at all. And not to mention, I think those 4 teams are going to be really good. And you throw in Cincinnati, a wild card, who knows? Yep. Schedule stuff.
Oh, my Lord. Look, UCF, I know you're fairly new at this. This is just your 3rd season in the Big 12, but you might want to up your gift basket game to Brett Yormark. Maybe, throwing some elite chocolates in there, better coffee, because you obviously didn't get the schedule you wanted. You got to get better gifts. It's the Jeter rule. For heaven's sakes, this schedule's awful for them. Awful. Yeah. For Scott Frost to have to face this.
It's tough. It's tough. I suspect they'll still be better, but their record may not necessarily reflect them being better, just for the simple fact of these road games that they have to try to navigate. Lord,
the home schedule's not bad. I mean,
no, it's not at all.
We don't know about KU. I think they're going to be pretty good. We said that last year, and we got the weirdest season ever for out of KU. West Virginia, Houston, Oklahoma State. Those are manageable games, and we'll see if they can indeed manage them.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. First-year coach Scott Frost. Cincinnati, you look at their schedule, starts off with KU on the road. Then you got Iowa State at home, UCF at home. It's not terrible, Fitz. I mean, you look at it. I mean, the tougher games, Iowa State, BYU, the perceived tougher games. Let me just throw that out there. Iowa State, Baylor, and BYU all at home. You go to Utah and Oklahoma State again. Both of those teams are very capable of doing the exact opposite of what they did this year, but I'm going to make them prove me wrong. So just looking at this schedule, I mean, they can improve off of last year. Remember, they were 5-2 at one point and then didn't win another game. So they got an opportunity here to make a bowl game this season if they can navigate this thing correctly.
You're right. This is a manageable schedule. You go to KU. Again, we don't know what KU is going to be. Oklahoma State, Utah, TCU. What'll be left to TCU by week game 12? In your home games, are really you got a couple challenges in there with Iowa State and BYU, but it's on your turf, man. And Nippert can be a pit. And this is a really good schedule for Scott Satterfield for this season. Maybe
Absolutely,
you can really get it rolling.
Yep, good opportunity for them to bounce back. West Virginia, take a look at their schedule. Starts off on the road, at least conference schedule. Starts off on the road at KU. You go to BYU. You go to Arizona State. You got Tech and Colorado coming to you. TCU and Utah. Again, 5. They're one of the that have 5 road games within the conference. But again, who knows what UCF and Houston are going to be. KU, the same thing. Manageable for Rich Rod in his return to West Virginia. Fitz.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, it's a daunting task of having the 5 road games. You're, you got Utah and TCU fairly early at home, or at least earlier part of the schedule. Those are manageable. Then Colorado and Tech, what will they be by then? And what will West Virginia be after going to Kansas, BYU, UCF, Houston, and Arizona State? This is a really mid-level schedule for me in this conference, but it's appropriate for West Virginia. They can do something with this.
Correct. They got to, because the last 3 could be tough, depending on what's going on. The last 3 could be tough. Those 3 are predicted to be pretty good within the conference this year, so we'll see what they've got left. But if they can manage that first half and then pull off 1 or 2 at the end, who knows? Who knows? Then you got Kansas. You got Kansas and Kansas State. So Kansas, their schedule, they start off with West Virginia. You look at theirs, again, at home. You get Kansas State at home. You go to Iowa State. You go to Tech. This could be a bounce-back schedule for Kansas. If I'm Kansas and I see this, I'm thinking, you know what? We need to have a bounce-back year from last year's disappointment, and I couldn't ask for a better schedule than this.
I agree. Let's be fair to Kansas. They didn't have any home games last year. They played on neutral site fields that were home games, so to speak. Stadium will be new. It'll be open. It'll be ready to go, at least from everything we're hearing. At worst, they might play those 2 early non-conference games back in Kansas City, but I don't think so. Everything they're saying, this stadium is going to be ready. And to be able to get these teams to come into your new place, West Virginia, Cincinnati, Oklahoma State, and Utah. Yeah, you can build off that, and you get Kansas State right there in the middle of that schedule. You've lost 16 in a row to them, but you're getting awfully close to beating them. Yeah, this could be a significant schedule for University of Kansas, and I think that new stadium is going to give them a little boost, a little energy from the crowd. It's a little bit smaller stadium, which I think is very appropriate in this day and age of college football. That means it's probably, even though it's smaller, going to be louder. People are going to be packed in there and on top of you. They move the stands in. It's going to be really interesting to see how this impacts Kansas, because they haven't had a real big home field advantage at times, and I think they're going to start to get it now.
Yeah, they will. They got to win early so they can get people invested. They'll be invested early on just for the simple fact that it's a new stadium. But if the season goes south like it did last year, people are going to start being uninterested, and that's definitely not what they want with the new stadium.
No.
They go to Tech, they go to Iowa State. Those 2 will be tough, but as far as home schedule and just the overall slate of the Big 12, very manageable for KU to get back on track. You look at Kansas State, again, the first game is in Ireland against Iowa State, and then the Arizona game, again, is not a conference game. That is a non-conference game. So, when you look at this, Colorado, you got them coming to town. You go to Oklahoma State. You go to Utah. Again, I'll keep saying it. Those 2 teams are going to have to prove me wrong as far as they're going to have to prove it to me that they're back. Right. I'm not just going to listen to people say, oh, they've got this and that. No. I saw enough to say trouble may be coming, but hopefully they can get back on track. Tough game. Tech comes to them. I don't know, Fitz. I mean, if I'm Kansas State, I like this schedule.
I agree with you. And you close the season at home with Colorado.
Yep.
You've done that with Iowa State for a few years. I don't really like that, but Iowa State's in Dublin this year. So you get Colorado to close the season and kind of a rivalry there. It certainly felt like it this year out in Boulder. But your road games to Baylor, tough. They're well coached.
Tough.
Kansas, tough, well coached, but again, Oklahoma State and Utah, what are you going to be?
Right.
This schedule, if they return to their previous stature, this schedule sucks. But if they look like they did anywhere close to what 24 is in 25, this is a really good schedule for K-State. So we'll just have to see how things develop. But again, what makes this schedule a step harder is taking away a rivalry game you were going to play at home and moving it to Dublin, which I think is huge for Kansas State, Iowa State, and the Big 12 to be on that stage. So it's K-State kind of took a bullet here for the conference to move that game over there and put them on a really cool platform to promote not just the Big 12, but a really cool growing rivalry between two pretty good football programs.
Yeah, and it's week 0 too.
Yeah.
It's not like it's
All
week
eyes.
1 where everybody's playing. It's week 0. So there's not a lot of football. I mean, if you want to watch a football game, this is the game that will be on television. Like anywhere you want to watch college football, this is the game that you will have to watch. So really exciting for both programs here, Iowa State and Kansas State, to have that kind of exposure, and for the Big 12. I like it. Moving on, the last two, Oklahoma State and Texas Tech. So you look at Oklahoma State, Baylor, they get them at home. You get Kansas State at home. You get Iowa State at home. Arizona, the Tech game will be tough. Kansas, UCF going to those plays. I mean, again, a bounce back year to get back on track. You get a lot of the tougher games at home. The Tech one on the road. I mean, Cowboy fans got to like this, Fitz.
I agree. Let's look at it. Arizona, you go to Arizona, Tech, KU, UCF. It's not that horrible. Baylor, Houston, Cincinnati, K-State, and Iowa State. Again, they're in a position to get off to a pretty good start. That second game of the season kind of staring right at me.
Right.
We thought, look, it seemed like a good idea to match up the uniform schools that start with O. But now all of a sudden Oregon and Oklahoma State looks like a lopsided game, but it hasn't been. We'll see how that plays out. But this is a cool schedule. This is a get back on your feet schedule for Mike Gundy and his Cowboys.
Absolutely. Like I said, the Tech game will be tough. Not that the others won't. Going to Tech is because I think Tech's going to be really good.
I agree.
I really do. I think Tech's got something here. I know they're dipping into the transfer portal, and we're looking at their schedule now. I just think Tech's going to be a good team. You look at them and their schedule. First two on the road. We haven't seen too often that the first two conference games of the year are on the road. But you look at it, it's Utah, it's Houston, but then they go to Arizona State. They go to Kansas State. They also play BYU. This is not an easy schedule by any means, Fitz. It's pretty tough for Tech.
Yeah, this reminds me of what K-State kind of went through. And yeah, back-to-back road games, open conference play. But they're manageable. Then you got KU coming in, go to Arizona State. So now you've played 3 out of 4 Big 12 games on the road. That's going to come back around even in a 5 road game environment. But kind of closing out with, your last 2 road games being K-State and West Virginia, a little interest there.
Yeah.
But you get some cool games. I mean, you got Oklahoma State coming in, you got BYU coming in. So I think it's a fun schedule, but I do recognize the fact that when we're looking at everyone else's schedule, we brought up Tech a lot, and that tells you what we think Tech could and should be in 25.
Correct. So to take all this off, I like the schedule. I like what the Big 12 did. They seem to have put together a lot of competitive games this year, which last year it seemed, now again, we don't know exactly what's going to happen because the conference got turned upside down on its head. So that I mean, what are you going to do about that? If things hold to what people think they're going to hold to, then there's a lot of more competitive games this year between contenders or at least people think that are going to be contenders. I kind of like the unpredictability of it all. The chaos, again, you know me, I like chaos. So I kind of like the chaotic atmosphere of last year, but I do like competitive football. So looking at some of these tough schedules, like I said, UCF is just murderous row. Going to K-State, Baylor, Tech, and BYU, that's just not fair. Lord have mercy. And then TCU. For TCU, those are the two toughest schedules in my opinion, because TCU at Arizona State, at K-State, at BYU, then you get Baylor and Iowa State. I'm like, okay, I just – holy mackerel. So those two right there, in my opinion, Fitz, are the two toughest schedules so far. Or not so far, the two toughest schedules in the Big 12 this year. I think it's horrid. Woo.
I guess my dad joke evaluation of TCU schedule is the Frogs can't be hoppy about it. It's a tough one. It really is tough.
Yeah, it's tough. If they can make, like you said, and I said as well, if they can make it through that and you get to week 11, like what do you have left? Like what's left of your football team? If you got something left and you come through unscathed, TCU would be one of the best teams in the country. Just absolutely. Period, end of story, based on what they will, the gauntlet that they've had to go through. And as far as the easiest schedules, the two that I think to me are Baylor and K-State. The back end of Baylor's schedule, very manageable. Again, K-State, I understand they go to Utah and Oklahoma State in back-to-back weeks, but I'm just going to make those two teams I'm going to make them show me versus people just telling me that they're going to be good. No, you got to show me, because I saw what you were last year. And did you make enough changes? Okay, if you did, great. Then K-State's schedule, like you mentioned, Fitz, becomes more difficult. But if not, and it's closer to what it was in 2024, I think K-State, that game at Baylor will be tough, but the others pretty manageable for both teams.
I agree. This is going to be a fun season. The first season of the 16-team Big 12 was chaotic and unpredictable from start to end. Everything we thought we knew at the start of the season, almost everything went out the window. And As soon as we figured some things out, that went out the window. In that case, it's Kansas. Oh, they're not any good. And all of a sudden, they are really good. So we'll see that again. We'll see someone jump up and shock the hell out of us. Whoever's picked for 16th by the media will not finish 16th. And it's going to be a fun year. In fact, I would, if I was a coach, I'd be petitioning to be voted 16th, because you won't be at that point. It'll piss off your players and they'll play at a higher level. Big B, I love this expanded conference. I think it's a great mix of like programs, cultures, and fan bases. And I think this year 2 of this schedule is going to be a lot of fun, because all the fans now have a better sense of familiarity between all of these schools after going through one cycle, and that will just continue to grow over these next coming years.
Absolutely. It's going to build, in my opinion, maybe some rivalries that weren't there. A little hatred for one school or another that wasn't going to be there, that was never going to be there, because you weren't going to play against each other. Or maybe you would play somebody in a bowl game. Now you get the opportunity, if you don't play every year or every other year, maybe 2 or 3 years. I like that aspect of it. I think the Big 12 is some good things. You touched on it at the very beginning before we get out of here, is a True TV. I just think that's another opportunity for the Big 12 to grow. They're going to have some games on there. Because otherwise, why put this out there on that channel? It doesn't make sense unless they're going to have some football games out there. And the more the merrier, in my opinion. The more exposure, the more that – look, I don't want to just kick ESPN while they're down or kick them anyway, because it is what it is. And it's a good platform to watch football games. But I don't know that it's in the Big 12's best interest, to be honest with you. And that's the only thing that I care about, is what's in the conference's best interest. So to get another platform, and who knows who they get over there, because I think a lot of it too, Fitz, and you tell me if I'm wrong, who they get to do the games, on other platforms and other networks. Because if you got a bunch of yahoos that are doing the game and it's not, enjoyable to watch or hear, then nobody's going to tune in and people are going to be upset about that. Yeah. But if you get some people over there that know what they're doing, have some excitement, I think that adds to a lot of this stuff that we're talking about here. I think that they could go a long way with getting some good names and just good people over there to do the games, to build some excitement for the Big 12.
Yeah, my initial guess is they might use CBS talent for those games. because they're under the same umbrella now. And I've said this before on my channel, on this channel. I think it's essential with the next round of negotiations that the Big 12 carve out its own identity. Being second fiddle to the SEC on ESPN isn't a good place.
Right.
And they don't give two craps about the Big 12. They'll pop someone up there if they like having Colorado because they draw big numbers, but other than that, they don't really care about this conference. And they certainly showed that with every show they had about who should be in the college football playoff. So I think if the Big 12 can end up with a combination of CBS, which has a little bit of that Big 10 contract, and those former Turner channels, TNT and True TV, which they keep continuing to talk about reframing, rebranding as a sports channel. If that happens here over the next few months, it might make a lot of sense that they're going to rebrand before the college football season kicks off, and it'll be a third viable all sports channel, fourth viable, I guess, out there, and we'll see if that works for them.
Absolutely. So, well, appreciate everybody and y'all support. Thank you guys for tuning in. As always, tomorrow we'll have those Big 12 basketball power rankings. People have been in the comments asking about it. I thought I had it, and then last night happened, and we got to change it again. So appreciate everybody being out here. Love you guys. We will talk to you soon.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.